Hello, geometry folks, and welcome to Special Right Triangles. Today, you are going to be the very important person learning something that is very important. So you need your foldable that we made in class, your notes so you can take notes in your notebook, your pencil or a pen, and let's have a calculator handy. All right, so here's the foldable that you need to have in front of you, okay? And this is so that we know all the shortcuts. And remember what that is. We remember that a 30, 60, 90 triangle is the hypotenuse, which is equal to 2 times the short leg. We should know that the long leg is equal to the short leg times the square root of 3. Okay, and then the shortcuts for the 45, 45, 90 triangle is the hypotenuse is equal to the leg times the square root of 2. Now remember, in a 45, 45, 90 triangle, we have an isosceles triangle, so both legs will be congruent. Now, with that information in front of you, we are going to use it to find out the answers to these problems. So let's go ahead and start with example number 1. Now, where I always start is, what side's the long leg, what side's the short leg, which side's the hypotenuse? Well, across from the 90-degree angle, that is your hypotenuse, so I'm going to label this hypotenuse. The 60-degree angle across from it is always the long leg. So I label that the long leg. Across from the 30-degree angle is always the short leg. Okay? So what I'm looking for is the hypotenuse and the short leg. So let's go ahead and find the hypotenuse first using the formula that we know. Hypotenuse is equal to 2 times the short leg. Well, the hypotenuse is y, and 2 stays a 2, and the short leg is x. Well, that isn't going to help me. So I can't start by looking for the hypotenuse. So we're going to come back to this. Where do I need to start? Well, I obviously need to start by finding the short leg. So if you ever, use one of the formulas and it doesn't get you anywhere, go to the other formula. So now we need to use the other formula, which is long leg equals short leg times the square root of 3. So the long leg we know is 9. The short leg we know is x times the square root of 3. Now, how do I get x alone? Well, I got to use my rules of solving. I divide by the square root of 3. Oh, and remember, we learned all those radicals last chapter. We did the radical chapter. Radical, dude. Now we know how to do radicals. So the square root of 3 divided by the square root of 3 cancels, and I'm left with 9 over the square root of 3 equals x. But remember, we can't have a square root on the bottom. It's totally, dude, unacceptable. So we're going to multiply the top by the square root of 3 and the bottom by the square root of 3 because I'm rationalizing my denominator. 9 times the square root of 3 is 9 square roots of 3. 3 times 3, remember, we can multiply underneath the radicals because they're the same radical, would be the square root of 9. And the square root of 9 is 3. And 9 divided by 3 is 3. So we would get 3 square roots of 3 is what x equals, and that happens to be our short leg. Now we know our short leg, so we can plug our x value back into this equation and find our hypotenuse. So y would equal 2 times 3 square roots of 3. Remember, we can multiply those numbers. And so y would be 6 square roots of 3. So the hypotenuse would be 6 square roots of 3. All right, so we have found our short leg and our hypotenuse. Okay, let's do example number 2. Now making sure you're writing these all down. I know I don't have pencils there, but you need to write them all down. All right, so now I have a triangle, but this says it's 30, so this must be my short leg. So then this must be the 60-degree angle. So this is my long leg. And this is my hypotenuse because it's across from the 90-degree angle. Okay? So I've identified my short leg, my long leg, and my hypotenuse. And now I want to find the hypotenuse and long leg. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my hypotenuse. Remember, the hypotenuse shortcut is the hypotenuse is 2 times the square root of, 2 times the short leg. My apologies, I need to erase that. So the hypotenuse is 2 times the short leg. So we're going to say hypotenuse is equal to 2 times the short leg, right here, is 4. So the hypotenuse is 8. So x equals 8. Okay? So the hypotenuse is 8. Now I can find my long leg, because long leg is equal to the short leg times the square root of 3. So the long leg is y, the short leg is 4, and the square root of 3 stays the square root of 3. So y equals 4 square roots of 3. So the long leg is 4 square roots of 3. All right, so let's try another one. Okay, this time I have a triangle. This is my 30-degree angle because this is my 90. That means the 6 is my hypotenuse. That means x is my short leg. It means 60 is my long leg. All right, so what can I do? I can say the long leg is the short leg times the square root of 3, but I don't know the short leg, so that equation isn't going to work for right now. So again, I'm going to start with my hypotenuse. My hypotenuse is equal to 2 times the short leg. The hypotenuse is 6. 2 times my short leg is x. Okay, to get x alone, I divide by 2. And 6 divided by 2 is 3. So my short leg is 3, my hypotenuse is 6, and now I can find my long leg. Because my long leg, oops, sorry about that. My long leg is equal to my short leg times the square root of 3. The long leg is y, the short leg is 3, and multiply that by the square root of 3. I would get y is equal to 3 square roots of 3, and so my long leg is 3 square roots of 3. All right, so there's 3 examples of the 30, 60, 90 triangles that hopefully you have in your notes. And now I'm going to do a couple of examples with the 45, 45, 90. All right, so if I am identifying one angle is 45, we know the other angle is 45 degrees. That means we have a 45, 45, 90 triangle. That means the legs are congruent. So if I know where my legs are and where my hypotenuse is, I should be able to find some stuff out. Well, here's the 90-degree angle. Across from the 90 is the hypotenuse. So that must mean that this is a leg and this is a leg. So I'm always identifying the parts of the triangle to help me with these problems. And so 10 is the leg. Therefore, if 10 is the leg and we have an isosceles triangle, then both legs are 10. So this leg is 10 as well. So I know that one leg is 10, the other leg is 10. And now I can use the hypotenuse equals the leg times the square root of 2 to help me find my hypotenuse. If I know my leg is 10 and I'm going to multiply that by the square root of 2, then my hypotenuse is going to be 10 square roots of 2. All right, let's do another example. Okay, now hopefully we can figure out if this is a 30, 60, 90 triangle or a 45, 45, 90 triangle. I have this little information here that tells me that these are congruent. So if they are congruent, I know that I'm working with a 45, 45, 90 triangle. Okay, and so we want to use the the equation, hypotenuse is equal to the leg times the square root of 2. And we should know that the legs are congruent because they're telling me they are. So the hypotenuse is 6 square roots of 2. And I'm just going to plug in a y here to find that y side first. And so I have y times the square root of 2. The opposite of multiplying is dividing. So I'm going to divide both sides by the square root of 2. And the square root of 2 divided by the square root of 2 cancel. Remember, always check that before using rationalizing the denominator. Save yourself some time. And so the leg, the y leg, is 6. Well, because I have a congruency statement here with these two symbols, meaning they're congruent, that means the other leg is also 6. So y is 6 and x is 6. Okay, that's all I have for now. Hopefully that you'll be ready to start practicing this tomorrow. Thanks. Have a radical evening.